You know, as I always say when we have this, begin this day, we just are amazed at all of you being here and the interaction that you have each other in this hour beforehand. We just love the networking and the engagement that you all have with us today. So again, hello, my name is Paul Kretko. I'm the president and CEO of Ann Arbor SPARK. I want to welcome you to Ann Arbor SPARK's annual meeting. It's really great, as usual, to be on the campus of Eastern Michigan University. I want to thank President Jim Smith for giving us this opportunity to use this great space. And we're going to share with you progress that we've made in 2024 and look ahead to the future. This past year, SPARK has continued to support business growth, job creation, and innovation across the region. We've also expanded our support to reach a wider range of industries and entrepreneurs, helping more businesses at every stage grow and succeed. While today is about celebrating last year's accomplishments, we're also excited to share a new initiative, the launch of Size Up SPARK, a free data-driven tool available on our website to help small business owners and entrepreneurs make smarter, faster decisions. This is very heartfelt. Thanks to the generous support of the Bank of Ann Arbor and Tim Marshall, we've been able to bring this powerful platform well deserved. The platform, what it does is it provides free access to market research and competitive analysis, resources that would typically cost businesses thousands of dollars. And we're offering that for free with the support of Bank of Ann Arbor. It's a strategic advantage for local businesses, reinforcing our region's commitment to small business growth and smart economic development. It's available on our website now. We launched it in March. I encourage you to check it out and share it with others who could benefit. I just want to give you, this is a little bit off script. Since March, 650 small businesses have accessed the tool, and they have downloaded over 30,000 reports and sub-reports to help them grow their businesses. And so what is that about? It's giving them a sense of who their competitors are, how they can target their advertising in terms of how their peers are performing, in terms of what kind of salaries they're offering, and all kinds. So it's a very valuable tool, and we're just really pleased to be able to offer it to the community. So moving on, before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank the sponsors who make this annual meeting possible every year. We're especially grateful to our keynote sponsor, the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation. And our premier sponsors, Comcast Business and DTE, and our partner sponsor, Toyota. Your support plays a vital role in helping us move our mission forward. As everyone knows, in terms of your involvement with SPARK, we are a public-private academic partnership, so there are many people that we like to thank at the beginning. And one, most importantly, is the Local Development Finance Authority, who provides the resources to support entrepreneurial support in our community, and the cities and townships across Washington County. Your trust in us is invaluable. I'd like to ask the LDFA representatives in attendance, we're doing something different here, if you could just wave that you're here instead of the, okay, thank you. We're also thankful for our more than 60 private sector investors. So again, we are this private-public academic partnership. The 60 private sector investors who support strengthens our programs and makes our business retention, expansion, and attractions efforts possible. We're also appreciative to the dedicated support of state and regional and local elected officials. Your support is very crucial to our work and even more crucial at this particular moment in time. Same thing, I would like to ask any local officials in attendance, if you can stand or wave to the audience that you're here in attendance. And a very special thank you to our academic partners for their strong financial support, especially the University of Michigan, our largest funder outside of LDFA, and have been the funder since the very beginning of SPARK. We also deeply appreciate Washtenaw County, our third largest funder. Your investment has been essential in advancing our mission to drive economic growth and innovation across the region. And then finally, a heartfelt thank you to the individuals who serve as SPARK's board of directors and operating committees. Your leadership and dedication inspire everything we do. I also want to recognize the SPARK team, which is interesting for this kind of event. It's an all hands on deck situation. They all have specific professional responsibilities that they do and drive our program. But today, everybody gets to be an event coordinator. So really, I appreciate this. This is a very passionate event for us, and the team really looks forward to doing it, but it's a lot of hard work. So again, thanking the team for that. We're thrilled to welcome Abram Lusgarden today. He's an investigative journalist and author of On the Move as this year's keynote speaker. His work explores how climate change is already shaping where people live in the United States. A conversation that's deeply relevant as we think about the future of communities like ours. We'll be sure that you stick around after the program. He's graciously agreed to do a book signing, and you will pick up your copy. Everyone in the room gets a copy of the book as you exit, as you leave. So now it is my pleasure to invite Kelly Sexton, Associate Vice President for Research, Innovation Partnerships, and Economic Impact at the University of Michigan, but also, her most important job, Chair of the Ann Arbor SPARK Board of Directors, to highlight our 2024 results.
Thank you so much, Paul. And I'd like to start by just once again welcoming everyone here. There's so much energy here. And congratulations again to the SPARK team for pulling off this tremendous event that highlights the very best of Ann Arbor SPARK's accomplishments and also the energy and enthusiasm of our community, of our region, and of our state for building an innovation-oriented economy. So once again, congrats to the SPARK team. At the University of Michigan, I have the opportunity to work alongside many organizations advancing innovation and economic growth, and Ann Arbor SPARK stands out as a true catalyst for regional impact. As Paul mentioned, SPARK is a collaborative effort between the public, private, and academic sectors, and we're all united by a shared commitment to growing businesses, creating jobs, and strengthening our community. For more than 21 years, this mission has been powered by strong partnerships and a clear focus on delivering real value to our community. We're proud to lead, to convene, and to create meaningful impact across the broader innovation ecosystem. I encourage you all to explore SPARK's 2024 annual report for a closer look at this year's accomplishments, and I'm excited to share a few key highlights from our past year. Fueling innovation and helping early-stage tech companies succeed is central to SPARK's mission, and our entrepreneurial services team does that by providing targeted funding, expert mentorship, and hands-on support for growth. In 2024, that commitment came to life through SPARK's work in the Ann Arbor Ypsilanti Smart Zone, where we provided consulting and critical services to over 450 startups, supporting over 1,000 jobs. The entrepreneurial marketing team also engaged with and assisted 54 startups, helping them build visibility, sharpen their message, and accelerate growth. One of the most meaningful parts of our work is seeing how these efforts translate into real impact, helping our local businesses grow, hire, and contribute to a stronger regional economy. The SPARK East Innovation Center is a powerful driver for entrepreneurship in Ypsilanti, serving a higher percentage of historically underserved individuals and communities than the national average. We do this by offering tailored resources from specialized mentorship programs to access to funding opportunities. The overarching strategy is to ensure that everyone can participate and no one is left out. In other words, the SPARK mantra, all in, nobody out. In 2024, the SPARK East team helped accelerate the growth of 38 startups through coaching, educational programming, and nearly $200,000 in grant funding. These Ypsilanti-based business sectors include pharmaceutical, medical device, education, finance, and AI. In addition, SPARK reached 480 youth through educational and career development initiatives, helping to inspire the next generation of innovators. Launched in 2015, the Innovate IPSI program was created to fill funding gaps for projects in eastern Washtenaw County that don't qualify for traditional incentives like tax abatement, brownfield funding, or DDA grants, which often have strict industry or investment requirements. Since its inception, Innovate IPSI has awarded more than $650,000 across 18 projects, stimulated $48 million in private investment, and created nearly 400 new jobs. In 2024, Ann Arbor SPARK launched the Small Business Support Hub, a new program made possible by a $3.4 million three-year grant from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Built in partnership with a strong network of community organizations, including the Howell Area Chamber of Commerce, Monroe County Business Alliance, Jewish Family Services, the Michigan SBDC Greater Washtenaw Region, and the WCC Entrepreneurship Center, the hub is focused on delivering hands-on support to small businesses across our region. Unlike Spark's entrepreneurial services team, which primarily serves high-growth, tech-focused startup companies, this small business support hub is designed to assist a broader range of small businesses, including Main Street, service-based, and community-rooted companies, with resources that are designed and tailored to their specific needs. In its first year, the program supported 237 businesses, more than 60% of which were women and minority-owned, representing over 300 full-time jobs across the region. It also helped launch 18 new businesses, supporting access to $185,000 in follow-on funding and providing vital guidance in areas like marketing, capital access, and growth strategy, strengthening our region's small business ecosystem from the ground up. This program is based on one-time funding, and we at Spark are actively looking for a private sector partner to continue its success when the grant sunsets in 2026. Paul and I and other members of the board welcome discussions about sustaining support from anyone attending today. Spark Capital is Ann Arbor SPARK's investment arm, and it's providing early-stage funding to high-growth, Michigan-based technology startups at the pre-seed and seed stages. In 2024, Ann Arbor SPARK continued its strong commitment to fueling startup growth through strategic capital investment. We're proud to be one of only 4 nonprofit organizations in Michigan selected to participate in the Michigan Innovation Capital Fund, or MICF, a program aimed at strengthening the state's entrepreneurial ecosystem by expanding access to early-stage funding. And we thank our colleagues from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation who are here today for this important funding and resource that's so vital to our startup ecosystem. Through this initiative, Spark Capital received over $5 million over 2.5 years, dedicated to investing in tech-focused startups. The MICF brings together a coalition of nonprofit venture funds, including Invest Detroit Ventures, Michigan Rise, the Michigan University Innovation Capital Fund, the Biosciences Research and Commercialization Center, and Invest UP, to broaden support for emerging companies across Michigan. This impact is tangible. Since the launch of Spark Capital in 2007, we've invested $34.4 million into 217 companies and helping those startups attract over $1 billion in follow-on funding and creating over 1,800 jobs. These outcomes reflect the power of smart, targeted investments and the strength of growing a network of partners that are committed to building a vibrant innovation economy right here in our region. Looking ahead to the rest of this year and beyond, Spark's capital initiatives will continue to empower entrepreneurs through follow-on investments in promising portfolio companies, funding support for winners of the Invest 360 pitch competition, and providing prize capital for participants in Spark's Entrepreneur Bootcamp. These efforts reflect our ongoing commitment to nurturing early-stage ventures and helping them take their next big steps. We're committed to building a robust, well-defined pipeline of innovative companies ready to scale and thrive here. Ann Arbor SPARK's commitment to early-stage companies extends as well through our direct investment efforts, including support for angel funding. Managed by SPARK, the Michigan Angel Fund is the largest angel organization investing in early-stage tech startups across our state. Since launching in 2012, the Michigan Innovation Fund has invested nearly $25 million into 42 companies, helping to attract an additional $577 million in follow-on funding and supporting the creation of over 1,000 jobs across our state. Some examples of SPARK Capital's investments in 2024 include Genomenon, a national leader in genome curation, which raised $5.5 million. SPARK Angel also supported M3D, a University of Michigan spinout focused on developing radiation imaging technology to enhance medical diagnostics. Additionally, we backed CubeWorks, yet another University of Michigan spinout, working on ultra-small sensors for healthcare and industrial applications. These investments highlight SPARK's ongoing commitment to helping Michigan startups grow, create jobs, and drive innovation. Now, to help high-growth companies scale without leaving our region, SPARK is very fortunate to have an amazing business development team that offers expert guidance, resources, and connections that encourage long-term local success. From site selection and navigating regulatory requirements to identifying funding opportunities and making strategic connections, this team helps businesses make informed decisions about expansion and investment. In 2024, this work by the business development team led to 17 successful growth projects, generating over $97 million in new investment and supporting nearly 1,200 jobs. Recent success stories highlight the diverse ways SPARK supports business growth across our region. North Star Clean Energy established its new corporate headquarters in Pittsfield Township with SPARK's guidance on site selection. In Saline, Labor expanded its operations with SPARK helping to secure local incentives and coordinate project milestones. And in Ypsilanti Township, Tortillas Tita, a minority-owned food manufacturer, is scaling up with a new facility supported by SPARK through technical assistance, financing connections, and an Innovate Ypsi grant. SPARK also played a critical role in bringing a collaborative project between the University of Michigan and Los Alamos National Laboratory to Ypsilanti Township, managing site selection, infrastructure evaluation, and stakeholder coordination to help secure the location for this exciting partnership. More on that in a bit. In Washtenaw County, the map that you see highlights the impact of both past projects and SPARK's accomplishments in 2024. This includes major new investments like Amazon's expansion and over $8 million in site readiness grants awarded across the region, with $7 million directed to the Latson Innovation Interchange Technology and Industrial Park in Livingston County. To further support small business development, SPARK published the Guide to Operating a Business in Washtenaw County. This is a practical, step-by-step resource designed to help entrepreneurs navigate local permitting and licensing processes. The guide breaks down key requirements by municipality, offers links to essential forms, and outlines who to contact for zoning, inspections, and business registration. It's one of these amazing resources that once it was created, I can't imagine how businesses were surviving without it. And so I really want to thank the creativity of the SPARK team in putting this forward. None of these activities would be possible without the continued partnership and collaboration of our local municipal leaders whose support plays a critical role in making these projects a reality. A strong economy depends on the strength of the workforce behind it. And this is why SPARK has taken a leadership role in addressing a key barrier to talent attraction and retention in our region, and that is access to childcare. In 2024, we established a multi-county childcare coalition, bringing together providers, families, businesses, and policymakers to develop actionable solutions that expand access to affordable, high-quality care. These efforts include supporting the growth of childcare businesses, advocating for policy changes, and helping childcare providers succeed. At SPARK, we thank the City of Ann Arbor for updating its Unified Development Code, making it easier to open childcare centers across more locations, a critical step forward for families and employers alike. We look forward to scaling this model across our region. In 2024, the state took a significant step forward to support innovation with the introduction of a new research and development tax credit, effective for tax years beginning in 2025. This incentive provides meaningful relief for companies conducting research and development in our state, from startups to established firms, and it helps lower costs and encourage growth. SPARK was a strong advocate for the legislator authorizing this important change. Ann Arbor has long been known for its commitment to sustainability. This is a value that not only reflects our community's priorities, but also makes our region more attractive to top talent and forward-thinking companies. That's why at SPARK, we are proud to support the Green Business Challenge in partnership with the city's Office of Sustainability and Innovations. Launched last May, the Green Business Challenge recognizes and supports local businesses taking meaningful steps towards sustainability. In its pilot year, dozens of companies joined the effort, adopting eco-friendly practices across 7 key areas: energy, water, mobility, circular economy, supply chain, resilience, and education. The response has been incredibly positive, and we're excited to grow this initiative as part of the broader push toward Ann Arbor's A20 carbon neutrality goals, empowering more businesses to lead the way in building our greener future. Ann Arbor SPARK's marketing, communications, and events team plays a key role in positioning our region as a dynamic hub for innovation and entrepreneurship. Using an integrated multi-channel strategy, including digital campaigns, content marketing, print and out-of-home advertising, earned media, and targeted communications, the team amplifies the stories of our local businesses and entrepreneurs. By promoting these shared successes and curating engaging events, they help build a strong, connected ecosystem that attracts talent, drives investment, and reinforces our region's reputation as a place where innovation thrives. What began 10 years ago as a small tour of our local tech companies has evolved today into A2 Tech 360, a dynamic multi-day event series that highlights regional innovation, explores key industry trends, and fosters connections across the tech community. In 2024, A2 Tech 360 delivered another impactful week and a half of programming, featuring over 20 events and participation from over 80 companies. The series included 8 signature events and 12 partner-hosted activities, bringing together startups, industry leaders, and the public for a showcase of innovation and entrepreneurship. Nearly 2,500 attendees registered from 247 zip codes, 16 states, and 3 countries, reflecting the event's growing national and international reach. A robust global marketing campaign drove over 161,000 website visits and more than 1.2 million social media views. Much of A2 Tech 360's impact comes from the contributions of community partners, like EMU's Digital Engagement Clinic, the Ann Arbor Hands-On Museum, Nucleate Michigan, and Amy Cell Talent. These partner events add unique voices, content, and audiences to the lineup, broadening the series' reach and ensuring that it reflects the full spectrum of innovation across our region. A2 Tech 360 is just one of Spark's comprehensive marketing and communication strategy. In 2024, we published hundreds of articles, blog posts, and press releases promoting our region's economic momentum, content that generated over 600,000 views on our website. Our social media presence extended this reach significantly with over 12 million impressions and nearly 700,000 engagements, helping to spotlight the innovation and growth happening across the greater Ann Arbor region. Through direct support from the LDFA, Spark also provides direct marketing services to startups, including strategic consulting, product positioning, website development, social media strategy, public relations, and collateral creation. These essential services are often cost prohibitive for early stage companies, but are critical to their success. And we're so fortunate to have the expertise and the resources within Spark to expand access to these critical services. In addition, Spark's marketing team supports and hosts over 200 events a year, bringing together entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and community members to share expertise, build connections, and strengthen our region's innovation ecosystem. This year's annual report showcases a number of key milestones that I invite you to explore further. It reflects an organization that's driven by passion, resilience, and a shared commitment to innovation and economic growth. These accomplishments are not Spark's alone. They're the result of strong partnerships and your continued support. Thank you all for being here and for everything that you do throughout the year to support Spark and our region's economy. Thank you.
I'm going to go off script here a little bit. Imitation is, sometimes viewed as the most sincere form of flattery. We want to acknowledge that we borrowed all in and nobody out from Ken Fisher in his book, and which described his leadership at UMS. And I told him beforehand we borrowed that, and he was pleased. But I wanted to acknowledge it since Kelly mentioned that that's become a motto at Spark. So Ken, thank you for that. It's now our pleasure to present this year's annual meeting awards and recognize the outstanding contributions of Robert Young, Mandy Graywall, O&L Therapeutics, a U of M spinout, the University of Michigan Los Alamos Partnership, and David Rood. Through their leadership and impact, each has played a unique role in advancing innovation and economic growth in the greater Ann Arbor region. Let's take a moment to hear their stories.
For nearly 3 decades, Robert Young has played a pivotal role in shaping Toyota's presence in North America, guiding supplier development, fostering innovation, and ensuring long-term success. Beyond his leadership at Toyota, Bob has been a dedicated force in the Ann Arbor region's economic development. As a longtime board member of Ann Arbor SPARK, he brought invaluable insight into the mobility sector and Toyota's unique approach to innovation. Bob's influence helped strengthen Spark's connection with Toyota, ensuring the organization could play a role in initiatives like FAME, the Federation for Advanced Manufacturing Education, expanding opportunities for talent development in Michigan. His leadership also reinforced Toyota's investment in the region, supporting its suppliers and deepening its ties with the community. Toyota established its Ann Arbor presence over 50 years ago to collaborate with the EPA. Today, it is home to the company's largest R&D facility outside of Japan. Bob's contributions ensured that growth remained strategic, sustainable, and connected to the broader business and innovation ecosystem. As Bob prepares for retirement, we celebrate his dedication, not just to Toyota, but to the people and organizations that make this region thrive. His work has left a lasting impact, and Ann Arbor SPARK is honored to recognize him as our Volunteer of the Year. Thank you, Bob, for your leadership, vision, and commitment to our community.
Mandy's the kind of person that is willing to sit down with anyone and willing to listen to a variety of perspectives. They may not be her perspectives, but she's still willing to sit there and understand and ask the questions needed to bring people together.
Mandy's expertise as a planner was perfect for that role on SPARK's board. She knew what it was like to really consider the county and all of its needs. And so she brought all of that experience to her role on the SPARK board. That meant that the county got to reap the benefits of that expertise and lived experience that she has.
When you look at the way that the county or the township has been transformed, she's made Pittsfield Township a driving force. It's the second largest economic driver in our county. So she's made that a driving force in the region. That's got Mandy written all over it.
One of the important things of working with Mandy is that we try to get to yes on every project that we're working on. One of the signature projects that we were able to accomplish that did have a complicated path was getting Walker's Chemicals R&D facility located in Pittsfield Township. The first site we had didn't work out, but Mandy didn't give up. We found another site in Pittsfield Township, and that has resulted in a significant R&D facility.
She had a vision. Annie had a vision, but she also believed in transparency. So people understood what she was doing, and she shared it with her board. She shared it with the residents. She shared it with SPARK. She shared it with the businesses that she was talking to. And that vision and that transparency both contributed to her being a strong success.
I got fingerprints on it.
ONL Therapeutics launched in 2011 when doctors David Zacks, Jeffrey Jameson, and Riley Kurpola joined forces to advance a breakthrough neuroprotective platform to preserve vision. Fast forward 14 years, and ONL has evolved into a clinical stage biopharmaceutical company developing therapeutics for patients with blinding retinal diseases. Underpinning ONL's technology is its unique and differentiated mechanism of action. ONL's lead therapeutic candidate, ONL-1204, blocks the FAST receptor, preventing cell death and inflammation, and potentially preserving vision. With unwavering perseverance through scientific challenges, funding pursuits, and clinical milestones, the team at ONL is successfully advancing potential treatments for geographic atrophy, glaucoma, and retinal detachment. Ann Arbor SPARK and the region's entrepreneurial network provided crucial support that fueled ONL's growth, from a bootstrapped university spin-out to most recently securing a $65 million Series D round. From founding to future, ONL's enduring values guide the company with passionate conviction. As the company prepares to launch its Galaxy clinical trial, the team at ONL is more committed than ever to helping patients see the future.
Okay. So one of you take this, and let's see how we can get as many people here as we can. Just squeeze in a little bit.
This is so tight. You're shorter than me.
Good? All right.
Innovation thrives at the intersection of research and opportunity. This year, Ann Arbor SPARK honors the collaboration between the University of Michigan and Los Alamos National Laboratory. This project aligns with President Santa J. Ono's vision to expand U of M's impact through deeper partnerships with national laboratories. By working closely with the State of Michigan's Department of Energy to create a state-of-the-art high-performance computing facility in Ypsilanti Township, U of M is advancing research in AI, energy security, and next-generation computing. reinforcing its role as a top public research institution and a national leader in emerging technologies. Ann Arbor SPARK played a key role in making this vision a reality, facilitating site selection, connecting decision-makers with municipal leaders, and supporting the planning process. The result? A project that not only advances innovation, but also brings significant economic benefits to the region. With an estimated 200 new high-paying jobs, averaging nearly $200,000 annually, it positions Michigan as a destination for top-tier talent and groundbreaking technology. The facility, planned for completion by 2030, will require new infrastructure, including a DTE electrical substation and expanded water and wastewater services, ensuring long-term sustainability for both the project and the community. Beyond the immediate economic impact, this partnership paves the way for the future of AI research and education. A dedicated facility will provide U of M students and faculty access to advanced computing resources, driving discovery across science, engineering, and technology. Ann Arbor SPARK is proud to honor the University of Michigan and Los Alamos National Laboratory with the Project of the Year Award, celebrating a partnership that is shaping the next generation of technology, research, and opportunity.
All right, let's hit our mark.
Today, I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to honor David Rood as the first recipient of the Michael Finney Leadership Award. We've created this award to honor Mike on his passing. Mike, for many of you in the room know, was the first CEO of Ann Arbor SPARK and was viewed as one of the strongest and best economic development leaders, not only here in the state of Michigan, but across the country.
What stands out most to me about Dave Rood's leadership and his leadership on the board of the DTE Foundation and in community is that he leads with heart and sincerity. And leading with heart and sincerity is one of the things that's allowed us to be one of the best operated foundations in Southeast Michigan. Dave has this innate ability to take big problems, big issues, and make them small, make them manageable so that we can get to the right answers.
Dave is our Chief Financial Officer at DTE Energy, and while he's focused on the numbers, he's also a customer advocate. He pushes for us to do our best to provide safe, clean, reliable, and affordable energy to our customers across our region, including those customers in Ann Arbor.
David has set an incredibly high bar for leadership and service to SPARK. All told, he has committed over 10 years of service to the Ann Arbor SPARK board. In addition to his work on the SPARK board, David has been a fantastic partner to the SPARK team. This is very evident in his work, helping them to recruit new companies to our region.
Ann Arbor SPARK today is recognized as one of the premier economic development organizations. You know the legacy of Ann Arbor SPARK is going to continue because of the work that Dave was able to do while he led the organization. Dave, we are so proud of you here at DTE. Congratulations on this well-deserved recognition.
We're all thrilled to see you being recognized in this way. It's so deserved. Thank you for your years of service to Ann Arbor SPARK and to our region. We're better because of your efforts.
Okay, I know it's what you've all been waiting for. It's time for lunch. So we're going to take a short break. If those of you who've been here before, you know, they'll dismiss your table and you go through the buffet line outside. So have fun at lunch. Have fun talking to each other. We'll be back in about a half an hour. Well, I hope you all enjoyed lunch and the conversation. We're going to move forward with the rest of today's program. Before we begin, there's a quick note on the Q&A process that we might have at the end of the keynote. There's no cards, pens are at your tables. You can write down any questions that you have. They'll give them to me, and I'll sort of moderate the questions. If you're unable to get your question due to time, as I said, Abram has graciously said he'll stay and sign your book, and you can maybe ask him the question that you had at that time. Now, I'd like to take a moment to recognize our keynote sponsor, the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation. For more than 60 years, the foundation has been a champion for Washtenaw County, investing in people, ideas, and initiatives that strengthen our community for the long term. Leading this work is Dr. Shannon Polk, President and CEO of the foundation. She has a background in law, philanthropy, and nonprofit leadership, passionate advocate for equity and civic engagement, that values that align closely with today's keynote theme. It's now my pleasure to welcome Dr. Polk to the stage to introduce our keynote speaker, Abram Lustgarten.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you to Ann Arbor SPARK for the opportunity to be part of today's program. At the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation, we believe that true community investment goes beyond just funding initiatives. It's about championing bold ideas that create lasting change. For more than 60 years, the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation has been dedicated to advancing equity, sustainability, and long-term resilience in Washtenaw County. We're committed to supporting solutions that not only address the challenges of today, but also prepare us for the realities of tomorrow. One of those realities is the profound impact of climate change on communities, an issue that cuts across economic, racial, and geographic lines. At A3CF, we recognize that addressing environmental challenges isn't just about conservation, it's about equity and opportunity. Climate resilience, sustainable development, and inclusive planning are crucial if we are to build a community where everyone thrives. That's why we are honored to sponsor today's keynote, which promises to shed light on the critical intersection of climate and community. It's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Abram Lustgarten, an award-winning investigative journalist, author of On the Move, and editor-at-large of ProPublica. Abram's work explores how climate change is driving global migration, conflict, and demographic shifts. His reporting has appeared in the New York Times, The Atlantic, and PBS Frontline, and has influenced policy at the highest levels, including international climate reforms and U.S. studies on climate migration. His work has earned numerous accolades, including the George Polk Award, wonder if we're related, and Pulitzer Prize nomination. I'd also like to extend our appreciation to Ann Arbor SPARK for featuring an Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation on a beautiful keepsake bookmark that you'll receive with your copy of On the Move. We hope it serves as a reminder that building resilient communities starts with intentional action today. Please join me in welcoming Abram Lustgarten.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here today. Thank you to Paul and to SPARK for hosting me and supporting this book and engaging in this subject matter. There's so much changing in the United States at the moment, where people live, how people thrive, how public policies support those changes, and most significant to me, how a warming world affects all of it. And that's the big picture of what I'm here to talk about today. I believe that we're entering an era of mass migration driven by climate change, and that mass movement is a new permanent feature of our world in flux. It will forever alter the economy and the demographic makeup of the United States. I'm going to take you on a big, broad journey. I promise we'll end up back here in Michigan. I want to start with a little bit of context. Throughout history, people have always moved in response to their climate. Somewhere between 60,000 and 80,000 years ago, the earliest Homo sapiens fled Africa because of drought, chasing a bounty of green belt of vegetation northward. They made it as far as the Middle East, mixing for a few thousand years with the Neanderthals before climate shifts drove the Neanderthals to extinction. As the Ice Age lowered sea levels, the surviving humans then walked across exposed bridges of land south across what are now the islands of Indonesia, perhaps sailing short distances to New Guinea, and walking onward to Australia. It was only much later, with the retreat of those glaciers exposing verdant northern latitudes, that people could settle on the European continent and beyond. And such has been the role of the environment in shaping where people live on the planet for all the ages since. 3,000 years ago, the Indus Valley emptied out because of drought. Some anthropologists believe that 1,100 years ago, Mayan civilization crumbled in the face of water shortages. 900 years ago, Chinese herders moved 1,000 miles northward into Russia as the permafrost thawed. Ever since, humans have been driven across continents by ambition, by persecution and aggression, curiosity and evangelism, but looming larger than perhaps anything else were always the changes in their climate. So migration is the ultimate form of adaptation. But now is different. Climate change is happening faster than any previous change, and the population of the planet is unfathomably larger. Consider, for example, that when the Mayans were thought to have succumbed to drought around AD 900, the planet's total population was just 226 million people. By the mid-1970s, the time scientists began warning in earnest of climate change, the world's population had swelled to 4 billion. And since then, the number of people has doubled again. More than 8 billion now inhabit the Earth. And by 2070, the world's population could be somewhere between 9 and 12 billion people. And the data and the research suggest that as this happens, people will do what they have always done for thousands of years in response to changes in their environment. They will move. I live in Northern California, and in 2018, we were on a run of crazy wildfires. Just about 20 miles north of my home, the Tubbs Fire killed 22 people and burned 3,500 homes over one night. I'd already been working on a project about how climate change would change where people live. I had been traveling around the world, investigating this question and looking at the best data and modeling, including a seminal report from the World Bank, which focused on places like the North African Sahel, South Asia, Central America. But the fires and the smoke in California got me thinking about what it would take to make me move and what climate migration could mean inside the United States. And so that became the focus of my book, which is really about a transformed America in the face of warming and the economic change that's accompanying it. And that's what I'll mostly focus on this afternoon. But I want to start with a very big picture, the scientific basis for explaining where people live and what kind of environment we thrive in. According to a recent set of studies published in the journals Nature and the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, there is a climate niche for human habitat on the planet. And as the climate warms, much of the world's population is slowly being displaced from it. The optimal range of temperature and precipitation that has supported human life on this planet for the past 6,000 years is shifting towards the poles. And as it does, people are being left behind, or they're shifting into marginal zones. A few years ago, roughly 1% of the planet was considered too hot or too dry for traditional civilization. By 2070, about 19% of the planet's surface will be too hot or too dry, covering equatorial latitudes of North Africa and Central and South America and South Asia, home to billions of people. By later this century, depending on which trajectory of warming we follow and how much the planet's population grows, between 2 to 6 billion people, or a third to 1/2 of all of humanity, will find themselves in places that for millennia would have been considered inhospitable to human life. Now, only a fraction of these people will ultimately move. The rest will remain and endure where they live. But it suggests that the number of global migrants will be orders of magnitude greater than anyone has anticipated. And there are signs that that has already begun. Some 600 million people globally have already slipped outside of that climate niche. The World Bank and academic researchers at places like Columbia University have begun to identify hotspots around the world where they expect significant climate migration to emanate from in the future. The bank and most researchers in this space focus on 3 main regions. South Asia, where billions of people depend on agriculture fed by melting Himalayan glaciers. There's Central America, where I traveled north from El Salvador into Guatemala and across the border into Mexico, tracing the typical migration route all the way up to El Paso, Texas, and exploring how drought and failing crops there were driving migration. And there's North Africa's Sahel, where the 9 countries sandwiched between the Sahara and the humid savanna is probably the most at-risk region on the planet. As people move within these regions, and within the United States as well, climate migration researchers expect migration to follow the same progression for how people have moved in the most vulnerable parts of the world in the past. Migration begins in rural areas, which are often the poorest and dependent on fertile soil and abundant water. These pastoral lands, or in the case of the United States, small towns, will begin to empty out. Most people hope to remain as close as possible to home, even when they decide they must move. And so first, perhaps they'll jump to a mid-sized town in search of work while remaining close to family, and then perhaps to a capital city in what researchers call a stepwise fashion. That rural outmigration will drive a rapid urbanization that could quickly make global cities dangerously overcrowded. Take, for example, the East African megacity of Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, which has doubled in size since 2000 and is on track to double again by 2035. I think my slides are off, but I'll catch up. The bank predicts that as the climate worsens, tens of millions will arrive there. But then what? Right now, a little more than half of the planet's population lives in urban areas, but by the middle of the century, the bank estimates that 67% will live in cities. Urbanization is a global phenomenon, regardless of wealth, but it's the world's poorest people, the same people, continent by continent, whose ability to feed themselves is most affected by the climate crisis, who are the ones rushing out of rural areas fastest. In Africa, rural to urban migration, according to the World Economic Forum, is happening almost 11 times faster than it is in Europe. And I saw a similar pattern at work in Central America, where coffee and sugarcane farmers in poor highland areas were first making their way to Guatemala City, and then ultimately into the caravans leading northward towards the US border. That's back to Addis Ababa. And here's where we're supposed to be, the caravans coming to the US. And you see it here in the United States as well, in cities like Atlanta, whose former sustainability director told me that as many as 1 million of the city's new residents have come from Central and South America, and where climate models suggest that 500,000 more Americans will move to as rural parts of the South, coastal Georgia, and places like that empty out. People move to cities because they can seem like a refuge, but they can just as easily become traps. Demand for water and electricity surges, and food, which increasingly needs to be imported, becomes more expensive. The costs in developing countries especially drive the poor into slums, and as unemployment and poverty rise, so does human trafficking, domestic abuse, and susceptibility to criminal gangs. What happens next is what nations around the world seek to avoid most. Criminal groups become a substitute for government. Slums can become hotbeds of extremism and chaos, ultimately fomenting conflict that can spill outward and destabilize whole regions. By 2030, the World Bank estimates that 4 out of every 10 urban residents, more than 2 billion people globally, will live in slums. And the International Committee for the Red Cross estimates that almost all of that growth, 96% of it, is expected in the world's most climate-affected cities, many of which already face heightened risks of conflict. There's no place in America where we won't also have to deal with climate change. It's inescapable, and large numbers of Americans are beginning to migrate too. For as long as there are records, the climatic sweet spot in the US, that climate niche, has more or less straddled the middle of the country. It stretches from the Appalachians to the Rockies. It's why our Southeast is verdant, why our plains and Midwest produce $35 billion a year worth of food and crops and much of the grain to feed the world. But within the next 4 decades, that sweet spot is forecast to shift sharply northward. That's what you see here on the right. It'll hover over northern Midwest and Chicago, and in a more extreme climate warming scenario, it moves all the way to the border of Canada and eventually to the other side of it. This degree of sweeping change in the climate of the United States promises to transform this country's politics and its economy. It is already raising household costs, making daily life more expensive. It's changing and will continue to change work productivity and shift geographic work opportunities. It's dramatically altering the availability of insurance, transforming people's financial vulnerability, and making homeownership both less affordable and less reliable as a way to build wealth. And it will prove more and more expensive to defend against every day into the future, while also raising the costs of food and goods. So in the United States, the choice to migrate in reaction to climate change will be an economic decision, not an environmental one. The heart of my reporting and this book is to understand what this means for the United States. This is a scene from Phoenix in a recent heat wave. They had 100 consecutive days above 100 degrees last summer. And this is the North Carolina coast, where established homes on a paved suburban street are washing out to sea. So I went back to that climate niche study, that shifting global livability, to understand where North America fits on that map and what it tells us about where we lie in relation to the most productive climates of the future. And then I went searching for more detail. I gathered what I thought was the best available empirical data on each of these unfolding threats, and I worked with the Rhodium Group, an economic and environmental research firm, and mapped their data. I wanted to see where the risks overlap to visualize geographically the multiple perils and specific forecasts, right down to the county level for the country. And the forecasts that they presented are for the very near future, much of it representing a moderate rate of climate change affecting us by 2040, just 15 years from now. These main threats by now probably sound familiar, but it's different for me, at least, to see them mapped. Wildfires become large and prevalent across the West. This isn't a surprise by now. The fires in Los Angeles were apocalyptic and have once again refocused national attention on the extreme risks faced by the American West. But wildfires become prevalent across the Southeast too. Florida, for example, as well as South Carolina and Georgia, become hotspots for megafires of the future. This image shows the vulnerability of homes to those fires. In the darkest spots on this map is the proportion of homes that stand a 1 in 4 chance of burning during the course of their current 30-year mortgage. In the darkest spots, 95% of homes face that probability. And then there's sea level rise. It's modeled to displace 13 million Americans who live along the coast, but then tangentially affect another 80 million who live in the metropolitan areas surrounding the places that are forecast to flood. This map shows what flooding will look like in urban places that we know, in San Francisco, in Charleston, in Miami. In Florida, between 1/3 and 2/3 of current housing sits below future tide lines, including as much as 79% of all the structures in Miami-Dade County. And if you think that sea level rise only affects the coasts, sea level rise will affect places 150 miles inland, like Jackson, Mississippi, on the tidal Mississippi River. And it could also ultimately affect cities like Chicago or Detroit or even Ann Arbor, because as people on the coasts move inland and are drawn to cities, it will both increase the population of those places, but also send ripple effects ahead of them in the form of gentrification, displacement of the poor, and higher demand for services and infrastructure. Then, of course, there's extreme heat. In all the years of recorded weather, extreme heat days indexed above 130 degrees were so rare in the United States that fewer than 2,000 people experienced a week of it in a year. But by 2050, 6 million Americans might experience that level of extreme heat annually. And when you get extreme heat, you also get humidity and loss of crops. Crop failure and extraordinary wet bulb temperatures, which is that measure of humidity, are forecast to pierce up through the middle of the country. On this map on the left, you see that in parts of South Texas and the Great Plains, crop failures could reach as much as 90%. Up the middle of the Mississippi River Valley, it will begin to feel in summertime the way southern Louisiana does now. It could be unsafe to play high school football outdoors or for gardeners and road crews to work. Factories and indoor workspaces will require air conditioning, something that buildings today have not been built for and which can cost tens of millions of dollars at least to retrofit. But all of these threats, of course, do not exist in isolation. They're compounding, they're overlapping, and they're amplifying one another. And as they do, they're beginning to transform the comfort and the safety and the livability of vast parts of this country. You might be wondering about the fastest growing parts of the country, which also happen to be in some of the places I'm describing as the most climate vulnerable. Arizona, Florida, Texas, Las Vegas continue to see the fastest population growth in recent years. And that's a continuation of a trend and due in part to policies that have subsidized people living there for a very long time. It blunts the realities of the risks. Insurance is cheap. It's guaranteed by state backstops. Water is cheap, paid for by federal plumbing, like the Colorado River system. And housing is affordable as a result. But each of these things are now peaking, and they're beginning to change. The maps of the threats present a picture of which parts of the country will bear the brunt of compounding change and which parts stand to be relatively spared. I tend to focus on the worst impacts on these maps, but if you want to look at where Michigan lies, it's almost always in the best forecasts on these maps. But collectively, they tell a story of a nation with the walls closing in around it. Pretty much the entire southern third of the US slips into the marginal zones of the niche over the next couple of decades, or begins to fall outside of it. In the long run, that'll fundamentally alter the economies of this country. It'll promise a thorough transformation of the quality of life of people here and the viability of regions, because labor productivity will shift dramatically, decreasing as much as 20% in some places. The cost of energy and the demand for it will shift as well, rising as much as 19% for households in places like Texas and the South. And farming will never be the same. All of this adds up to a cumulative economic strain for the country. Nationally, economists estimate a loss of 1.2% of US GDP for every degree of Celsius of warming from here on out. But look at the county level GDP that's mapped in this map. Declines along the South and the Gulf Coast and in Florida range between 8 and 50%. And at the very bottom of the map, some Florida and Louisiana counties might see a 60% decline in their annual GDP. That would turn these counties into economic dead zones, losing far more than they can produce until they go bankrupt. We are already now starting to hear the early signs of this economic strain. We hear them in the near bankruptcy of federal aid programs like FEMA and the National Flood Insurance Program, and in the alarming tales of unaffordable or unavailable insurance. First Street is a climate analytics firm that models risk for real estate. You might know them from the flood factor scores that are on sites like Realtor.com. Their recent research adds detail to the sort of economic trends that I've been describing. First Street forecasts that insurance rates are climbing in response to climate risk, having already jumped about 19% nationally on average and facing another 29% increase over the coming 25 years. As those rates climb, insurance is becoming a larger portion of the costs of owning a home, and the value proposition of home ownership is decreasing. First Street projects that home appreciation has peaked in many places facing climate risk, and that over the next 2 decades, on average, US home values will decline by $1.4 trillion. When this happens, climate change is, in a way, upending the American dream. And First Street's conclusions are in line with what the rest of my research tells us, that when this happens, people will move. As that climate niche sweet spot in the US shifts sharply northward, climate models and the migration data I'm looking at suggest that between 13 and 160 million people, up to half of all Americans, will face the kind of degrading environment that has driven historical climate-influenced migrations. For comparison, the Dust Bowl led to the migration of about 3 million people. And America's Great Migration out of the South saw about 7 million Black Americans move northward. Each of these periods transformed the identity of this country. The maps I showed you do indeed point to disasters in the South, but they also point to relief in many ways in many parts of the North, including in Michigan. And so the next question is, what does this look like for American society? Those past migrations transformed American culture. The Great Migration led to the Harlem Renaissance. It led to the music of Louis Armstrong, and it transformed the identities of cities like Philadelphia and Detroit. So there is opportunity, and I'll come back to some of that, but there's also risk. I want to share a story. On one of several trips that I made to the state of Louisiana reporting for this project, I drove a stretch of country road south from the city of Houma towards the southernmost coast of the United States. It was a land of rising seas and destroyed homes battered by hurricanes that were arriving too frequently to build back from. And near the end of the road, I crossed a levee and entered the small battered community of Ile-de-Jean-Charles, which has just 29 remaining residents. I stopped at a 3-bedroom, mid-60s, single-story house that was thrust into the air on 20-foot stilts, an acknowledgement of the unstoppability of the water. And in the front yard, a hand-painted sign faced the road that said, "Climate change sucks." The land in southern Louisiana is sinking. It's a rare combination of subsidence and sea level rise that's accelerating the effects that many other parts of coastal America will soon face. The state's losing more than 35 square miles of land each year, and in the southernmost areas, the population has been steadily shrinking for decades as a result, as people move north. Ile-de-Jean-Charles was an indigenous community. Tribal people had either lived there for centuries or fled there in the early 1800s, and the home that I was at belonged to a Choctaw man named Chris Brunet, whose family was 5th generation on the Isle. And Brunet described to me a place from his childhood that I had to imagine because it no longer existed. He described open grasslands where horses galloped across a low-lying prairie. And he told me of walking to a place called Lake Tambor, where he would fish with his father. But now water was everywhere. And I gazed out across the Gulf of Mexico towards where that freshwater lake had been. And Brunet told me that he thought this place could have been saved. The levee that I'd crossed was part of a state and Army Corps of Engineers project to protect certain parts of the Louisiana coast from flooding and rising seas. But some places, including Ile-de-Jean-Charles, had been deemed not economically worth saving. So one of the great challenges that climate change presents to American communities seeking to adapt to it is that the hardships will be divided unequally along the same dividing lines that already define our society. They'll be divided between rich and poor, between communities of color and white ones, between urban and rural ones. It will exacerbate and underscore the inequalities created by redlining, by discriminatory development and investment, by unequal mortgage rates and interest rates. Studies show now that redlined neighborhoods have 30 to 40% fewer trees, and as a result, they're 10 degrees hotter. They also show that poor and minority communities are more likely to flood catastrophically, because they've not received the adequate investment in the past and will fall more behind quickly in the future. And not everyone facing these impacts will move. Mobility is also a function of wealth and age and energy and opportunity. And so while all of this information heralds a potential boom for vibrant places where people might decide to go, and these maps suggest that many will move northward to places including Michigan and the Northwest, others, particularly the elderly and the poor, will remain by choice, or they may well be trapped. The risk is that some of those places will face a spiral of economic decline. A collapsing tax base will lead to worse infrastructure and higher climate risks, and poorer schools and fewer jobs, and lowering home values and a loss of assets. And so in response to this, more people leave, and that cycle perpetuates. This is an image of Main Street in a small town in Colorado called Ordway, and it's a once wealthy farming community that has become a case study in decline since the 1990s when farmers there lost access to their water. Their population has shifted nearby to cities like Denver and Colorado Springs, and their youth are now a diaspora around the country, having left for college or other opportunities and never returned. It's a harbinger for how other rural communities across the country may be strained in the near future as the residents face rising home ownership costs due to climate change and insuring against it, and whose residents are modeled to age and to decrease in prosperity and their per capita income. So one huge set of challenges is around how policymakers and leaders and companies support those communities and adjust to create future possibilities. This is a challenge for Arizona or Florida or other high climate risk parts of the country, but it's also a challenge for places like Michigan too, because the modeling suggests that the same sort of rural to urban trends that will affect the Great Lakes, those same sorts of rural to urban trends will affect the Great Lakes region too. So how do you plan for and facilitate anti-growth so that communities can shrink but not decline, remaining proportional, perhaps, to the economic activity that will realistically support them? Whether you're a small town or city facing decline, or both, how do you raise the funds to maintain the services that entice people and build the infrastructure that helps them adapt? And if you're a big city and you have a strong tax base to work with, how do you summon the political capital to do the same? Because if you don't, you enter that spiral of risk, rising costs, and ultimately an unsustainable economic downturn. That First Street research shows us that while homeownership has historically driven wealth for Americans, thoughtful policies and preparation are now needed to maintain that wealth, to find new ways to generate it, and to work with, not against, the changes that are inevitably underway. In some places, that's going to mean making painful decisions about which places, especially smaller towns and rural communities, are worth protecting when funds are finite and which ones are not. In other places, likely across the northern United States and here in the Great Lakes, it may mean finding the best ways to capitalize on the potential for growth. This slide is from a Stanford University study projecting per capita GDP growth of between 200 and 450% in the northern latitudes because of all the things that I've talked about. Energy is cheaper, labor will be easier, crop yields may increase, etc. The models and all of the forecasts that we've just talked about suggest a population shift towards relative safe havens in the Northeast and in the Great Lakes, and to a lesser degree in the Pacific Northwest. These places will also see climate challenges, floods and mega rain events and toxic algae and smoke. But there is ample water. The Great Lakes holds 20% of the remaining surface freshwater supply in the world. And there's the absence of the main threats like wildfires and hurricanes and coastal flooding. In some cases, there's also ample infrastructure capacity. In Detroit, Cleveland, Buffalo, throughout the Rust Belt, these are cities which have abundant housing and systems built for populations larger than those there today. And the broader regions around us might see an increase in crop yields and longer growing seasons, steady economies, or even an increase in GDP. Heating and energy costs here will be cheaper relative to the South. The First Street forecast for home values decline across 85% of American census tracts, but they also project some home value increases in the places deemed sustainable, which includes across parts of the North and the Great Lakes. And their research projects migration into this region too. Kalamazoo, Kent, Grand Traverse, Ottawa, and Washtenaw counties are all on their list of forecasts for places where climate-influenced population will increase, anywhere between 24 and 60%. This is where energized, eager workers of the future will be, looking for vibrant new industries. You're already familiar with well-recognized notions of climate havens, right? Cities across this region are marketing their potential as a respite from disaster. And I know well that people here in Washtenaw County have been thinking substantively and proactively about their future. It's in the book. Still, I want to remind you that how this plays out depends on decisions that businesses and policymakers make right now. For one, cutting emissions right now directly affects the severity of the changes that I'm talking about. That human climate niche study dropped emissions to reach the Paris targets, and the estimates for the number of people pushed outside of the climate niche globally can drop by 80%. In the US, that might mean that sweet spot holds in the central part of this country. Maybe 40 million Americans are affected instead of 160 million. So we can limit the downside and we can steer the upside. We've seen a glimpse of how effective policy can be. Some of the laws and pledges made over the past 4 years, if any of them survive, have enormous potential to slow the consequences of warming and to mitigate the rising costs and threats to individual people here. 80% of new electricity energy installation in the United States in 2024 was renewable. South Dakota, just to name one surprising success story, gets 80% of its power from renewable sources. So it's important to know those facts and to defend that progress. Whether our cities of the future look like overcrowded places in decline or full occupancy, thriving communities that are driving economic vibrancy and deeper cultural engagement depends on smart growth and planning and forethought about housing stock, on policies to provide jobs and transit and housing and education. These are familiar challenges, but they're amplified and they're far more urgent in this new context. And that's the final thought that I want to leave you with today, that what is needed next is just work. It's legislating and funding and planning and building. And it's work that's pretty well defined and straightforward and well within our technological capabilities. It's work that we know how to do. Thank you. I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to have a discussion and answer questions. Appreciate it.
So I'm going to tell them that they can talk with you afterwards. Okay?
Sounds great.
We're a little tight on time, so I want to make sure that we finish up our program today. Abram's going to be here. You can speak with him directly as you get your book. And I want to thank him for joining us. We at Spark knew this would be a sobering presentation, but sometimes we think we need to hear what we need to hear. So that was one of the reasons why we invited Abram here today. So again, I want to thank all of our annual meeting partners, especially our keynote sponsor, the foundation, our premier partner sponsors, that is the Community Foundation, Comcast Business, DT, and Toyota. Your support is essential in advancing our mission. Now, before we close, this is a point of personal privilege here for us and the staff. I want to take a moment for doing something special. Would Aaron Wiley please join me on the stage? There are many people who help make Spark what it is. And today we want to recognize someone whose dedication, professionalism, and steady presence behind the scenes has been a cornerstone of our organization for many years. Erin Wiley is my executive assistant. She was hired a month before I showed up, so she trained me. And she's retiring. In fact, tomorrow, I think, is retirement day. Pretty much. Erin has been really the engine behind countless board meetings, events, travel plans, just about everything else you can imagine. She's been a constant support to me personally and a trusted partner to so many across our organization. Erin, we want to thank you for your years of service, your tireless commitment to Spark's mission, and the calm, thoughtful way you've dealt with your CEO and the rest of us. We're going to miss you dearly, but we know your next chapter will be full of adventure, travel, and plenty of time with your very spoiled dogs. And if you want a dog, you should talk to Erin. She has lots of them. Please join me in celebrating Erin Wiley and wishing her all the best in retirement. Oh, I think she. Let me hold this. Okay. All right, I'll hold the phone. There you go. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so now, yeah, you didn't see that coming. No. We're pretty secretive inside the room. Yeah. Now looking ahead, as we close the night, I'd like to invite everyone to join us this fall for A2 Tech 360. We talked about that earlier. Taking place between September 24th and October 3rd. There's lots of events you can participate in and enjoy. This is the 10th year anniversary of Tech Trek. That we started. Bill Mayer and I came up with the idea of the parade of homes for tech companies, and it's grown to this. And we are doing something a little different this year. We're moving Tech Homecoming inside A2 Tech 360. So for employers in the room, what we've discovered is on the night before Thanksgiving, we have lots and lots of job seekers with really great resumes, but company folks want to be home with their families. So we've decided to move the event, and it's going to be tied to the University of Michigan homecoming weekend. So please, if you are looking to hire really talented people, talk with us. We would love to have you engage in that effort. Again, as I said, before you head out, the book signing is happening outside. You get your free copy of Abram's book. And again, we want to thank all of you for joining us today, and we look forward to the continuing collaboration ahead, and have a great rest of your day.
We'll be right back.